Welcome back to Starting Point. And Louisa, look what
do you have?
This is a Rosella Lavender Kombucha. And
Okay.
what do you have?
I have orange chamomile vanilla kombucha. Smells so delicious.
Yeah, because today we are celebrating World Kombucha Day.
Exactly.
It is very, very interesting to know the fact that kombucha actually comes from like 200, more than 200.
2000. Is it? We need to check. We need to check.
No, 200 BC.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a long time. Okay.
That's a long time.
So we'll be discussing about the origins of kombucha and what is kombucha. Right here we have Ivy Londa. She's the founder of Ramuraga Kombucha, which is what we have right here. The bottle. So welcome Ivy on Starting
Hi,
Point.
Ivy.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's talk about kombucha, okay? So I've heard kombucha only recently, actually, only the past few years. And I think it's trending now. For me, it's surprising the fact that this drink have been created thousands of years ago. But I mean, like, we haven't really been seeing a lot of it here in Indonesia until recently. Can you tell us more? Where does kombucha comes from? Which country is it origins? And what is this drink?
Yeah. Do you want to try first?
Yes,
Sure.
I think
Okay. Thank you.
I should.
Okay.
And especially it's good for if you're having like cough or like
It's really good for your guts, actually. It's really good for your digestion system. Try it and try it yourself.
Cheers.
Oh, this is delicious. I like it. It's very refreshing.
That one is a little bit sour because it has rosella in it, but this one is a little bit maybe sweeter because it has vanilla, it has chamomile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I find it really hard to describe the taste because there's so much things going on in its flavor.
But I can
it's so
taste the
tasty.
fermented,
Yes.
how it's being fermented, and the tea also as the basic ingredients. So kombucha is basically tea.
Yeah, so kombucha is basically a fermented tea that we made from a culture called SCOBY. SCOBY is a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. And from the origin, it's actually, you're right, Luisa, it's found by a professor or a sensei, a healer called Kombu back then in China or Japan region, 200 years before BC. And then Professor Kombu found a healing properties through basically a tea that is left over from many days. So it's a wasted tea basically. So tea is, kombucha is a fermented tea with the SCOBY. It has a very much good properties for your digestion system because of its prebiotic nature. So our guts actually needs a little bit of acid in order to nurture the microflora and the microbiome in your guts. And do you know that in our guts is actually a microcosmic of ourselves, just like the stars in this universe or like the planets in this galaxy. So having a microcosmic in our guts, have you ever heard brain and guts axis?
No.
So what you eat is what you feel, because
what we eat is actually what we feel. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, explain more.
That's something that we often stress eating or having craving for sweet when we are in a bad mood situation.
That makes sense.
That resonates, right? But actually, what you eat is also influence what you feel. So when you eat good food, and especially have a prebiotic properties like kombucha, which nurture your ecosystem in your guts, you will be, feel happier. That's also later. It's also gut is also where to produce serotonin. So having better microbiome in your guts brings you to a better self, to a calmer self, and to a more serene feelings in your daily life.
I think you're making a lot of sense. I mean, like, when you're drinking this, I just drank that and I feel very energized and I feel very fresh in a way. I mean, it's different from when you're drinking a bitter tea, for example, or medicine, of course. It creates a different feeling to you. Ivy, you've been doing this for your business for the past few years now. I know like some of my friends who are also making kombucha for their business, they sometimes refer to their kombucha as their pet.
Yeah, I've heard about it. We call it baby SCOBY.
Baby SCOBY.
Yeah, we put it an analogy of SCOBY, like the tea, the tank, will produce babies and baby SCOBY. So it will produce new SCOBY every time we ferment, and that's where.
Explain to us in more detail. Like try to describe it to us. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a colony of bacteria. So SCOBY is actually the king of bacteria. So there are a lot of bacteria in here. I'm not saying it's bacteria, and not bacteria is bad. You know, like the one we need bacteria, some are good,
bad.
And that's why we need for our digestion. Without bacteria, we cannot digest our food, and that's very important in our guts in order for our guts to absorb the nutrients. Without it, if you've heard many times, like especially during the pandemics, that's where I start the kombucha making and kombucha business. But we often said about immune system. What is immune system? Immune system is basically your body capacity to absorb nutrients. What you eat is really benefiting for your body. And without microbiome, without a good bacteria in your guts, that wouldn't be possible. And then every time you eat, even like you eat a lot of veggies or fruits, but the nutrients doesn't absorb in your nutrients. So that's why we introduce a beverage that promotes gentle living and also promotes mindful eating and produce responsibly in order to create a beverage that starts your healthy lifestyles.
All the healthy stuff. And the kombucha.
It's simply a drink where you can start a dialogue with yourself.
Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. So it's not only being healthy, but also like you have this serenity, as you mentioned before, and especially you started it during the pandemic. Did you really have the impact of making kombucha to give to the people's life and also to yourself?
Yeah. So maybe I'll start the story how do I start? How do I, introduce or being introduced to this magical bacteria? So I was an impact researcher, and right now I'm also still an impact researcher. So I did a lot of research and a research trip in Java and across Indonesia. And there I met like many community-based enterprises who the leaders usually have some philosophical or like spiritual guru. So I met one spiritual guru in Wonosobo. He's a healer, and he told me about the philosophy of kombucha. Basically, kombucha is made from tea, sugar, the SCOBY as a culture. That's it. But there's another element, which is time. Because all fermentation product needs time to process. That wasn't really make sense to me when I first heard it, this philosophy of kombucha. But then I came back from my research trip, and then the pandemic hits. So that's where everyone was in isolation. Everyone was in start.
It became really stressful for some people, especially for people who are extrovert, as I can sense from you right here. Like people who are extrovert can become really stressed during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, and then for me especially, I lose the sense of space and time. You are at home every day. You don't know the Monday, Tuesday, or even weekends,
especially during that quarantine week.
Especially, and it's quite long for all the society, right? So making kombucha is a sense of therapy for me. It's actually an activity that brings me a motivation to wake up every morning to taste my kombucha and see it whether it's sourness according to my likings, because every day it change a little bit, right? And that's interesting because that's where I found the philosophy of kombucha. It's actually learning about the essence of time. Time is the only thing that's invisible, but you can only see it through change. And that's where, from my kombucha practice, tasting it every now and then, every day, it becomes more sour. Sometimes it just, just tastes like that. And I began to wait, and a practice of patience and surrender, especially during the hard time during the pandemic. And I also see many social problems. For example, you remember during the pandemic, a lot of people have a job loss, right?
Yeah.
And the data said, especially women, because women is very vulnerable. We are all women here, very vulnerable during the pandemic to lose their jobs. So I thought combining, my passion to sustainability, my passion to women empowerment, why don't I teach women who lost their jobs to brew kombucha? We call it brewing kombucha, and then they become, and then we create a venture who brew kombucha and also empowering women, while we're also continuously contemplating on the essence of time and how can we create this life into a more gentle living. Because when you surrender, when being in the essence of your presence, you can be more into going into a gentle living, and that's what really needed during the pandemic.
Wow.
Yeah, and then you just trust your gut.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally.
Yeah,
You just trust
I
your gut.
literally trust my gut to to create a brand. My background was also in entrepreneurship, so I simply make kombucha, and it becomes so many. I share to my family, my friends, but then I put it in the bottle, put it in the brand, and then it becomes a business until now.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you know what? I'm very inspired by what you said so far, and I want to know more, especially about Ramuraga itself. But we need to take a break first.
Yeah.
So,
If we're talking about time, this is the time when we do need
we are
a
practicing
short
our
break.
patience.
Yeah. And
The
we'll
world needs
talk
break.
more about kombucha on World Kombucha Day with Ivy Londa. So stay tuned only on Starting Point.
Starting Point, and we're still here with Ivy Londa, and we're still discussing about the drink, a special drink, kombucha, where I just learned today that apparently you should not shake a bottle of kombucha because it can explode.
Yeah, and then it's always brew product, so it has some yeast on top of, just
Yeah,
like wine or just
yeah.
like beer. So it's usually as a sediment in there, but it's safe to drink.
It's safe to drink, and it should always be refrigerated
Yes,
to
it's
make sure
always
it
to be
stays.
chilled, yeah.
Okay, okay.
For
okay.
like 6 months, it can last
up
until
till
6
months as
Yeah.
long as it's refrigerated.
And if it's not in room temperature, it can last like 7 days.
Yeah, 3 days or 7 days.
that's not bad.
Depends on the temperature.
Ivy, we saw in the video just now how you are making a kombucha, and it looks almost like you're making a potion, as we mentioned before. Can you explain more to us about how do you make kombucha and how do you make this very really unique flavors for your kombucha Ramuraga?
Okay, so basically there's some techniques on brewing kombucha. We actually often held workshops if people wants to really know how's the skill or what's in the technique of brewing kombucha. But for me, it's simply an experimenting. I think kombucha opens, since today is the world's kombucha day. I think beyond the kombucha drink itself, it's also it opens a wide door into the fermentation culture. As we know, Indonesia has actually a lot of ancient methods.
Yeah.
Look at tempe. I mean, tempe has been, with the tempe movement, for example, it has been known the whole world. So having a fermentation culture it actually speaks towards a wider topics. We're talking about how to respect the earth, how to do seasonal eating. So as we know, the earth is not meant to produce all day long or all year long, right? The earth needs rest just like the people need rest. So in this fast-paced industry, fast-paced consumption, I think making kombucha is also a learning to be patient, produce or consume a slow product. When I say slow, it's not like long time, but slow is actually an abbreviation of sustainable, local, organic, and whole products. So kombucha is one of it. And yeah, I hope people can learn on making the kombucha techniques. It's very simple. It's not a rocket science. It's just like mixing tea. For us, we have researched the tea blend of ourselves. And that's actually brings the first component of the kombucha. And then secondly, it's just basically sugar. But after the fermentation, it's actually quite a low a low GI because most of the sucrose, most of the sugar has been eaten by the bacteria. That's like the source of energy for them. And then after the fermentation, it becomes a glucose or a good sugar that we need. Sometimes our body needs glucose. And that's it. And with the SCOBY, our SCOBY is homegrown. We talk about like the baby SCOBY that we mentioned earlier. So we've grown our baby SCOBY. Now we have plenty of SCOBYs. And that's mainly our workers in the brewer.
All your workers, which is all women, are taking care of these baby SCOBYs every day. Tell us more about your workers, because you mentioned just now how looking after all these baby SCOBYs has become a therapy for you, and now you have an all-women worker. Why is that? What is your principle here? What is your motivation here?
So, in relation on how to make a good SCOBY, a good kombucha batch, as we know, we are dealing with a living thing. Like in your bottle, in what you hold, is a gazillion of bacteria in one bottle. They often call it as a magic elixir. So we treat it as we treat other living being. We treat it with respect and we treat it well. And as the same goes to our worker, which, as you said, all women, we always make sure that, this is beyond job. What they do, taking care of the baby SCOBY, it's beyond job. It's a way of living an authentic life based on their passion, based on their, domain of expertise and domain of what they like. So in Ramuraga, we strive to that we create what you love, what we love, and sell. It's to create what we are and sell what we love.
Wow.
Okay. And listening to every philosophy of kombucha and how the history looking from the history, and it is worth to celebrate. Like kombucha is not only a drink, but it's also like living things, like good living things that we as human and with the bacteria are like,
we need to consume.
Can sync and to live together for a better self. And it's quite funny and interesting to know how kombucha now is more famous in Indonesia and also around the world, and people are more awake as well to consume kombucha that inside this drink has the goodness.
More healthy ingredients, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you explain to us, what's the challenge in selling kombucha in Indonesia at the moment? Is it still difficult to sell, or do you think people are pretty much aware of the healthy ingredients in kombucha and its positive functions for our body, really?
So, first of all, there are many benefits for health for kombucha. That is good for the GERD. Actually, it's treated good GERD because of the the control logic. If your body feels not acidic, your GERD will produce more acid to make it more more acid. So that's where you have like this GERD problem. But if you put a little bit of acid regularly in your body, your brain will tell you that your body is acidic enough, which is good. We need some acid. That's why it doesn't need to produce any more acid. So that's like a control logic here in your GERD. Some also says that kombucha have many healing properties for different disease like blood pressure or diabetic. Or it's essentially good for diet because it's good for
a proven fact.
Digestion. Yes, but there are a little evidence of saying that kombucha can heal. What we can confirm that the brain and gut axis, when you eat well, your microbiome is well, and that's where the 80% or even 90% of the serotonin, your happiness hormone, is produced. So in Ramuraga, we tend to see this kombucha as a perks, to inspire lifestyle, to shift to healthy habits, but there are many ways to do it. And in terms of the industry, I'm happy to see when first I started this, there are only probably 2 or 3 brands in Indonesia, which is quite old because they were starting when the first, they call it kombucha bubble, like in the US. In Indonesia in 2018, there are also some kombucha bubbles, but there in the 2020, there are not many brands. Right now there are quite a lot, and I'm happy to see like this industry growing. Means that consumers have more options to a healthier drink. I mean, with this trend of high sugar drink, like soft drink, like the tea, and then also highly processed drinks or food, and also fast consume product. You know, kombucha as a slow product, it's an antithesis of the FMCG basically. You know, we respect that the kombucha produced for 7 days. That's the first fermentation took around 7 days, and the second fermentation, which is the flavoring, takes like around 3 days or 5 days, depends on the temperature. So kombucha is really sensitive to the temperature, and that's how we respect, you know, dealing with the drink with a living things inside.
And I like how she's like reminding everyone that slow food is good, it's much better. I mean, like these days we just want everything express, instant, and sometimes we don't really think that it's actually causing so much harm and damage to our body internally. Explain to us, Ivy, so you say that right now the community is getting bigger and people are taking kombucha more regularly these days. How often can we drink kombucha on a daily basis, and what's your recommendation?
So actually kombucha is better to, just like a probiotics properties, it best to drink on a small amount but regular, because you need to like keep maintaining the acid, the level of acidity in your guts, right? So it takes, this is a 300 ml bottle. You can drink this like every day, but less than this, like probably you take this for like for 2 days, so just like around 150. That's also quite good. Take it as a therapy. Take it as, you know, something to start in the morning if you already regularly drinking kombucha, or just after eating, that makes you, you know, feel fresher because of what I said. Like it gives some energy to the guts. It boosts your serotonin. It boosts your energy level. So often after drinking kombucha, you feel more refreshed.
I feel more refreshed today.
Yeah, I feel more refreshed after drinking Ramuraga Rosella Lavender Kombucha, and also listening to Ivy on how the history of kombucha and the community here in Indonesia, it's growing as well. And do you have any like funny experience during the World Kombucha Day? And even when you started the business, did you already know that there's such a World Kombucha Day?
Yeah, actually I don't know. And here in Indonesia, as I said, I'm happy to see the industry actually growing, but the community itself is not really, you know, as settled as probably in the Western world. I know in Germany there's Kombucha Summit where they, you know,
really,
they take it very seriously.
They take it very seriously. All the you know, kombucha brewer, professional or personal, they gather, they, you know, exchange knowledge about the skills, and what's more important is also exchange technology, because in here it's actually very difficult to access that kind of technology to make a standardized quality of kombucha.
What kind of technology are we talking about? Like, do you have a special machine to make the kombucha?
So it's basically the technology for kombucha. It's quite very simple, because SCOBY itself is aerobic, so it needs oxygen to ferment. So we can tweak a little bit from the technology that usually used for the beer brewing or the wine brewing. But remember, the beer and the wine, it's anaerobic, so it doesn't need oxygen. It needs to be you know, closed. But kombucha fermentation tank should be open because it needs oxygen. So yeah, I hope that the industry will also gather community. Oh, actually today with Indo Kombucha is one of the you know, a long life teacher in kombucha community in Indonesia. We make a special video from around the world passing on the culture, because when we talk about kombucha community, it's basically passing down the culture. So, for example, I give to you, Luisa, my SCOBY culture, then we are sisters, basically.
Oh, It's like
We're
passing
sharing
on
babies.
the torch.
Exactly, passing on the torch from that culture. And once you nurture it in your home long enough, your way, and then that becomes your sort of like your SCOBY, your baby,
My baby,
right? Your
my baby.
So yeah, essentially,
Such a big responsibility.
but it's just a baby that you need to feed like every week, not like
Every
hour.
week, every
Yeah.
7 days.
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah, talking about the kombucha community, Ramuraga actually also have community. We have first of all, last year we initiated a community of an F&B, a food and beverage business. The aim is to it's called the networking night called Pasarasa. So we every 3 months we gather with like F&B businesses. To basically mingle and just party, but beyond that, it's to influence them that there are options for a healthier product that to be put in the menu. They are on the frontliners of like offering to consumers. So that's where last year we initiate Pasarasa. Actually, the next would be the 7th of March. So stay tuned on our Instagram at Ramuraga to know like if you are a F&B business. But this year we also launch a new campaign. This is more a community for women and girls who wants to learn about the gentle living. And we're now opening that community in our newly launched website, www.ramuraga.com. So everyone who's interested in joining the community, not just to brew kombucha, but also to learn a gentle living and how to having an authentic life using, of course, touching kombucha experience, visit our website for it.
Nice. You seem very, very busy with so many things happening with this kombucha community. And as you mentioned just now, you mentioned a few times about gentle living. Can you please explain to us more about what is this gentle living concept, really?
Yeah. So for us, we try to create a products that promotes a mindfulness, mindful in eating, mindful in the way of our living, but probably mindful is overrated. Probably mindful is overused. A lot of people say
hear it so often
mindful,
these
yeah,
days,
but
yes.
what is it? Because it's essentially a way of living. So we coined this. Have you ever noticed that there are no word for gentle woman? Well, it's actually a brand now, but it's a gentle. It's essentially
Women who are
gentlemen,
gentle,
right?
yeah.
Because being gentle is it's a characters. It's a characteristic that innates by women. It's our nature to be gentle, but that's also an aspiring characteristic by men. You want your men to be gentlemen, right? So having a gentle living, it's not about how hard or how loud or how whisper or like how fast or how slow.
It's not about the attitude.
It's not about that. But it's the attitude of your heart of being gentle to yourself, surrendering. Remember, this philosophy derives from a long probably year of isolation where I start this. So I think making Ramuraga Kombucha is my way to
practice it,
practice a gentle living, and I want other women also to join.
I'm challenged.
Gentle living.
I'm challenged, and I feel very inspired by you because some people, they have their business and they make it very secluded, very isolated for themselves to gain profit from it. Whilst here you are, and you're trying to promote this to everyone out there to even learn to try to culture all the SCOBY babies and to promoting all this gentle living concept. Very interesting,
Yeah, because I think you're not only selling the products, you're not only selling kombucha, but the way of
the mindset,
life, the way of living with kombucha. Because what we hear talking with you, how kombucha has changed your life, like how was it like before and after kombucha?
Yeah, so I said it's merely a therapy for me that I want to share with other people. Knowing that, and that's probably pandemic was a wake-up call for everybody that this world moves too fast. And as I said, we all need a gentle break. And for me, making kombucha is my sense of therapy. But I know a lot of people will pursue different ways. We can do yoga, we can do running, we can do skincare for women. Skincare is also our way to, you know, change ourselves to a better self.
Make yourself feel better, yeah?
Yeah, and that's what I actually get from making kombucha. I think this is my course of action to, you know, pursue an authentic and gentle living. And I hope that can also speak to other women, because, you know, as women, we all have many different responsibilities,
yes.
different roles, and being gentle and, you know, tap in again to our innate nature of being gentle to our children, to our, you know, community, that can create like a bigger ripple, a longer ripple effect if we aim that to women.
I totally agree with Ivy right there.
Yes.
Let's be gentle. Be gentle to ourselves too. Sometimes as women, we are so hard on ourselves, putting so much pressure to us really, I mean, like on a daily basis. But yeah, great reminder. And for those of you who are interested to try Ramuraga, you can order Ramuraga from Instagram or from the website itself, yeah? And you have how many flavors right now?
We have 8 different flavors. And then we have like this, chamomile, and then rosella lavender. So we mix fruits and flowers normally and spices into the flavors. We have 8 different ones, and we already actually in many outlets in Jakarta and Bali. So if you see like a cafe that, you know, or if you have a cafe that wants kombucha as a part of the menu, talk to us, contact us on the website.
That's great.
Oh, wow. Who would have thought that today we are celebrating World Kombucha Day, but we also learn about the healthy living, mindfulness, and being a gentle woman. That is a very insightful conversation, Ivy. Thank you so much for joining us today, this morning, here on Starting Point.
And for those of you who want your dose of kombucha, go ahead to the Instagram and the website, as I mentioned just now, to try out Ramuraga's 8 flavors.
Yes.
8 flavors. Okay, so that wraps up our Starting Point for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Luisa Kusnandar.
And I am Aisha Fabienne. And we will wish you a very good day.